Hey everybody, we're live. I'm waiting for questions from you. Okay, good. We got some questions already. The Bollinger results, well, let me select this question. By the way, there's no new material presented here. I'm just going to answer your questions, okay? The Bollinger results in a portfolio between 2008 to 28 to end date. My strategy requires much less entry days to work. However, in order to have directly comparable results, the portfolio produced should also start and end at the same time. What I'm looking for is there's the beginning date, which is end of 2007, end date, which is end of 2009, so 2 years. What I care about is the performance of some strategy that trades between those two dates. It might start a little bit late, it might end a little bit early. That's fine. Just measure the performance between the start date and the end date, and it ought to perform better than the Bollinger strategy. Now, you could cheat in the sense that you might just make one trade and exit after 5 days and just find the very best trade in that period. Well, I don't think that would work actually, because you couldn't accrue enough cumulative return to do well there. So anyways, I don't think you can cheat. I'm just looking for some strategy that trades between those dates that performs better. And you can only use data between those two dates. You can't go before to get data before that date. Okay. If you have any more questions on that, ask them and I'll try and answer them. Okay, next question. In part 2, we are to come up with our own strategy. Is modifying the strategy presented in part 1 but enhancing it allowed? I feel the answer is yes, and I am just overthinking part 2. I think strictly according to the way the project is defined, you can take Bollinger just as it is and modify some parameters, and if it's better, you're okay. I would be disappointed if that's all that you did. But, you know, if all you care about is a grade, so be it. Anyways, I would prefer for you to come up with something a little bit better, a novel way of approaching it, a new indicator, something like that. But strictly speaking, as long as whatever strategy you come up with exceeds the performance of the baseline strategy, you're okay. Has the session started? For some reason, I see the questions being answered, but my live video broadcast hasn't started. I think that there's a lag in the video, so anyways, I hope soon to see somebody say something that verifies that the broadcast is working. Okay. There's no new questions here yet, so I'm going to go look on Piazza and see if there's any there. Okay. What is the expectation? Oops, What is the expectation for the out of sample period? We're not, in terms of grade, your performance out of sample doesn't count. What counts is your assessment of that out of sample performance. One of the things I want you to learn here is that in almost all cases, in-sample performance is going to be worse than out-of-sample performance, sometimes significantly worse. So a challenge in this sort of stuff is to craft strategies that work in sample and continue to work out of sample. Usually the best that you can hope for is that your in sample performance, is very, very strong. Out of sample, it's not quite as good. Maybe you get about half the performance out of sample. But anyways, my expectation is that your out of sample performance will be bad. Broadcast isn't working for me either. Maybe you just need to wait a few moments. I know that there's a delay. Okay, this question is, can you give an example on how to use states for part 1A? How do we get rid of duplicate longs or shorts before an exit? Okay, good question. On Piazza, I posted some advice, and I said that you should add a variable that keeps track of what state you're in. So you've got some section of code where you're deciding what to do. So you've got a, sorry I don't have a whiteboard here to write it out, but there's, the core of your code should be a for loop, and that for loop iterates over each day of the in sample or out of sample period. So your code should then evaluate where is the current price with regard to the upper and lower Bollinger bands and SMA. And the thing is you need to know, am I holding stock or not holding stock to fully decide what to do. So for instance, if you are above the upper Bollinger band and holding shares, what you do in that case is different than if you're, say, below the upper Bollinger band and holding shares. So you add this variable that, when you execute a trade, you keep track of, okay, I entered a long position. So now when you come back through that loop, okay, I'm holding the stock, so I certainly should not enter another buy because I'm already holding stock. So in that case, if you were to trigger another buy situation, you would skip it because you'd see, okay, I'm already holding. Then finally, you'll reach the exit condition and you'll exit, and your new state then will be cash. You can use an integer for that. 1 is long, 2 is cash, and 3 is short, something like that. I hope that explained it, but if not, just ask the question again and I'll try address it in a better way. Yes, the broadcast is working. Awesome. Okay, I need some more questions. I got no questions. I'm checking on Piazza. Okay, there's no questions on Piazza. Well, I'll answer a couple questions that have come up recently on Piazza while we're waiting for new questions to come in. First of all, with regard to the midterm, we've found one question that was incorrect in the sense that the answer that the machine thought was the right answer was not the right answer, so people got points taken off. So we're going to regrade that according to the correct answer. We're going to wait until next Wednesday to do that because we've got an open period where people can look at the answer key and challenge any of the questions if they like. But so far, there's just one that has a problem. So we'll regrade that and look for an update after Wednesday next week. Another common question has to do with can you exit a position and enter a new position on the same day? Yes, that's fine. The core requirement is that you either be long 100 shares of IBM, short 100 shares of IBM, or in cash. As long as at the end of the day you're in one of those three situations, then it's fine if you have two trades in one day. Okay, we got some new questions. Any suggestions on trading strategies for part 2? Yeah, I will throw out a couple. So one that somebody had mentioned on Piazza that, well, so first of all, I'm discouraging people posting strategy ideas on Piazza because I want everybody to think independently, or put another way, I want the result of your work to reflect just your brilliance as opposed to brilliance of other people. But there was one idea that somebody posted on Piazza that I thought was good, and I let it stay. The reason I let it stay is because it's potentially kind of complex, but it's based on something you've learned before. And I thought it was, if you implement this idea, I'm satisfied that you've learned something. So anyways, the idea is use an optimizer to refine parameters on your strategy. So for instance, if we look just at the Bollinger Band strategy, there are a few parameters that you might consider. One is, should the upper and lower bands be 2 standard deviations above and below the moving average? Maybe they should be lower or bigger. And so if you follow the baseline strategy, but you make those upper and lower bands lower or bigger, you might get better or worse performance. What if you add another factor to your analysis? One that I think is good is to look at the current Bollinger Band value for the entire S&P 500. So let's say this is our simple moving average, and currently our price is up here. Let's say for IBM the Bollinger value is like plus 0.9. But what if for the market it's like negative 0.9? If there's a big difference between the Bollinger Band value for the stock that you're looking at versus the market overall, that means there's something special happening with that stock, right? So you might choose to restrict your trades to situations where the market's value for the factors you're looking at are different than the particular stock that you're looking at. I've seen over and over again that sort of approach is valuable. And again, you can use the optimizer to refine the parameters for that strategy. In general, I would say having several factors at once is almost always more effective than just using one factor. Okay, I hope that was informative. Okay, this is a reference to a question on Piazza, number 987. Let me look at that question just to check it out. $987. Not getting that. I seem to be Piazza challenged. Sorry. I don't usually go directly to a particular post number. Okay, well, I think I can answer the question in any case. There are two sorts of charts that you should submit for this project. One chart shows your Bollinger Bands and the price of IBM. So it's got the SMA and the upper and lower bands, and then the current price of IBM. And there are vertical lines, occasional vertical lines, indicating when you entered or exited a position. The code to generate that chart should be within, let me make sure I say this correctly. There's two files you're supposed to submit, and it should appear in one of those files. So the code that generates that chart should be in bollingerstrategy.py. You should create a similar chart for your strategy, and the code to generate the chart for your strategy should be in mystrategy.py. That's the only new code you should write. For some reason, people are cutting and pasting their version of Market Sim into the code. You don't do that. You already wrote the market simulator. Use it. So take the output of bollingerstrategy.py, should be an orders file, run that through your market sim program, and boom, out should fall the statistics and the chart. So the other chart type is one that shows the performance of your strategy, whether it's just the Bollinger one or your custom strategy. So should show the value of that, along with the performance of the S&P 500. So to answer the question again, the code that generates the charts with the vertical lines should be in bollingerstrategy.py and mystrategy.py. And the code that generates the performance of the strategy over time should be in your market simulator. Okay, next question. For part 1A, does it make sense to just store a state variable, true or false, in a column in a large data frame with all the values like upper, lower, IBM, etc., then iterate over this large data frame to find the entries exit? So start first just with a for loop where you iterate over each day. So let me start from the beginning. First, create a data frame that has the price of the stock. Add also the upper bound, the lower bound, and the SMA. Okay, so you've got a data frame now that has price, SMA, upper bound, lower bound. So you can do that in a vectorized way. It should be really fast. Next, you create this for loop, like I said, and you look at each row one at a time. First row, well, you start with the state being in cash, right? First row, do I make a trade? No. Next row, do I make a trade? No. Next, do I make a trade? No. Next, do I make a trade? Yes! It's a buy opportunity. So we issue the buy order, and we change our state to long. So now, as we're iterating through, we're not going to issue another buy order if we're already long. And when finally we meet the exit criteria, boom, we print the sell order, and we change our state to cache. Okay? So start by doing it in a simple way with that for loop. And if later you want to get fancy by trying to do it all in a vectorized manner, okay. But I suggest you start with just the basic for loop first before you go trying to vectorize it. So just confirming your response for a previous question. Okay. Regarding the requirement for the code to run on one of the university-provided computers, if our code runs in the class VM, does that meet the requirement? Yes, that meets the requirement. Can you confirm that the portfolio stats posted on the wiki are correct? Yes, for the baseline Bollinger strategy, the performance from first trade to last trade is correct on the wiki. Just to confirm, the marketsim.py that will be used to test the order files is what each student uploaded before, or a standard one from TA. We've got our own version of MarketSim, and we'll just use that. You should already know whether yours generates the same output or not, based on the results of our autograder. So if you pass the autograder, everything should be fine. Okay, to follow up on Royce's question, you mentioned the marketsim.py should generate a plot. However, I don't believe this was a requirement of the marketsim. Should we modify marketsim.py to handle this plot? All right, so that's an interesting point. I think in previous versions of the course, we indeed had marketsim output that plot. Let's take a quick look. Okay, you're correct. My expectation of that plot was from a previous session of the class where MarketSim should print that. However, you have already written code to do this, right? Yeah, it's the code from Project 1 in Mini Course 1. You wrote code to analyze a portfolio and print a plot of its daily values. So just call that code from within your version of MarketSim to generate that plot. Okay, is this what the code is supposed to do? Bollinger strategy.py. 1, display charts. It should Bollinger strategy.py should create one chart, and that is the one that shows the price of IBM, the upper and lower Bollinger bands, and vertical lines indicating entry and exit points. 2, call compute port vals from MarketSim. No. 3, print out the statistics. No. All the Bollinger strategy does is it outputs a chart and it outputs orders. That's it. Okay, next question. MyStrategy.py. MyStrategy.py should do the same thing. It should output a single chart, and it should output orders.csv. Neither of these strategies should call compute port vals or anything like that. That should be from within your marketsim.py. Is the code for each part required to be in one file? I have 2 files, but I've organized across several files. The key thing is that if we want to verify your code, we should be able to run it. So if you require some additional supporting files, yes, you can submit those along with the 2 required files, and we'll just run within your directory. But be sure you're not calling disallowed libraries and so on. Okay, Professor, a question in Python. So for some reason your Python question didn't arrive, so type that in again. Can we have a strategy with just buy and sell and no exit? Okay. Yes. Sure, that's fine, as long as you are never long more than 100 shares of IBM. So you should always be long exactly 100 shares of IBM, or short 100 shares of IBM, or in cash. As long as your strategy abides by those restrictions, you don't have to call it an exit if you don't like. But if you are long and then at some later date you go short, I would assert that there was an exit in there. But we don't have to explicitly call it that. So, for instance, if you're long 100 shares and you suddenly want to short, you should sell the 100 shares and then sell another 100 shares to be short. I hope that answers the question. How deep do you expect us to get into the performance analysis? Can you give an example? Well, like I said on Piazza, we're getting now to projects where we expect you to do some research and write your thoughts in a coherent manner. So I'm not going to give a detailed answer to that, but things I would like to see are overall, how did the strategy work? What are its weaknesses? What are its strengths? How would you assess it in comparison with the baseline strategy? If it worked well in sample but not out of sample, why is that? Things like that. Can you post all the orders instead of just the first 2 trades? No, because part of this project is for you to generate those answers. So I think it's fair for you to post specific questions or examples. I think you should start by comparing what your entry and exit chart looks like compared to the one that's provided. I'll bet you'll find that it's different. And that's a starting point for discovering what might be wrong with your code. We need to upload 2 orders.csv, one for each part. I don't believe that's a requirement. We just want your code. Let me double check that. Right, we want your Python code and your report. You don't need to upload the CSV files. Okay, I'm waiting. Run out of questions. I'm checking on Piazza to see if there's any questions. Okay. I'll wait about 30 more seconds to see if there's any other questions. Otherwise, I'll sign off. Okay. I did get another question. Can you have more than one condition if statement for a single state? Such as short. Does it make sense to place these conditions in a for loop? Let's see. So that's a reasonable question. So in the baseline case, either you're long, short, or in cache. So if you're in cache, one of 2 things might happen. You're waiting for an opportunity to long, or you're waiting for an opportunity to short. So to answer your question, yes, if you're in the cache state, there are 2 things that might happen, a long or a short. If you're long, the only change in state that might occur is that you sell those shares and go back to cache. So in the case of long and short, there's just one condition that might happen for each of them. Now you might have more. Your strategy that you develop might be more complex, and there may be more states that you're in to make those decisions. I think probably most of the ones that I could imagine are not more complex than just having long, short, or in cache. But you know, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody had a strategy that was slightly more complicated than that. Okay, next question. Could you give us some suggestion about some effective indicators? First thing I suggest is go to stockcharts.com. They have a big list and good coverage of all sorts of technical indicators. But sure, I'll mention some that are useful. So in addition to Bollinger Bands, another one is momentum. So is the stock on a trend up? Is it on a trend down? Another one is volatility. So what's the recent standard deviation of daily returns? RSI, relative strength indicator, is a good one. Another popular one is MACD, MACD. Those are all fairly well used, and especially if you use them in conjunction, you may see some good performance. But more important than just using specific indicators for against IBM, again, I think it's really good to compare in your strategy, compare the current indicator value for IBM versus the market overall. If IBM is different, significantly different, that's a clue that something special is happening with IBM and may merit, a trade. Okay. Is it okay if my code doesn't actually output orders.cv, but still performs all the appropriate calculations? Yes, that is okay. I don't know why you would do that, but because you already had your market sim written. But okay, sure, that would be okay. Okay, no more questions. Okay, let me go ahead and close now. Well, we got a question. Just to confirm what you said earlier, for both the files that we submit, we just need to have the code to include strategy chart and orders.csv. Right, you do not submit code that computes stats or the portfolio value chart. Now, your report better have some portfolio value charts, but I'm assuming you've got the code for that in your market sim .py. If I did not score well in the market simulator project, is it possible to get a good version of marketsim.py? No. Sorry, we're not sharing marketsim.py. You should fix marketsim so that it works properly. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close now. I will also be on Piazza later tonight and be glad to answer any other questions. Thanks for joining me, and I hope that you're enjoying the class, and thanks for all the questions. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.